Hello, hello, everybody. All right. We're back. One viewer. All right. I already have one viewer. That unless that's me. I don't know if that's me or not. But glad you could join us. Thank you for hanging out. And yeah, I'm going to be here for about another hour or so. Just finishing up my work day, and just wanted to spend some time with you, lovely people here in the Twitch stream, Twitchverse. So was looking through some stories today that I'd found in my RSS feed, and found there was some discussion about on Dark Reading about 4 keys to bridging the gap between security and developers. Chief privacy officer and co-founder of a company created this document on, because sometimes in the InfoSec community or security, sometimes we run afoul of developers who, they have a certain way they want to do things, and a certain way they handle, working with security. Sometimes us security people, we're not the most flexible of people. It's, and I don't know if it's our jaded natures, but it's kind of we almost do the my way or highway kind of thing, which is, it's not a very good mindset to take with regards to security. One of the hard lessons that I've learned in the past few years is, business impact, and what makes sense for, being ultra secure also does not make things easy to use. There's a lot of folks out there that don't like security because we're also the no department. Like, oh, I want to do this cool thing. No, you can't do that because of X or Y, or I want to be able to put RDP on my network because that's not good. You probably shouldn't do that. So one of the things they had mentioned here, they said, developers don't have the best of relationships. There you go. See, no one's fault. It's just the nature of what we do. We protect the security. We, being we, the royal we, protect organizations from risks. Developers, are, I wouldn't say free thinkers, but they're creatives. They like to build things for the betterment of mankind. I see a problem. I want to fix the problem. They don't necessarily think about fixing it in a secure fashion, or it's not possible to fix it in a secure fashion. And, we have dealt with this for years with, patches and vulnerabilities. Something that comes out that's a good idea, they don't take into account how people can misuse it or abuse it in their use cases. So also, developers are hitting timelines that are tight because product managers and folks are trying to get things out first to market, addressing customers' needs. And yeah, a lot of times, I don't know if anybody's worked in big industry or, in a development house, but QA and test and security, they have everything in a nice timeline. We get 3 months to do this, and a month for QA and testing, and, a couple of weeks for, security to check things. That 3 months of dev time ends up being like 5 months. And then it's like, oh, QA and test have like 2 days, and security gets 6 hours, and it's done. And that's, it's not always development's fault that happens, but we just have different priorities. So yeah. They quoted Wendy Nather. If you ever get a chance to listen to Wendy Nather speak at a conference, or you can find her on a podcast or anything like that, take the time to listen. She's awesome. Amazing lady, and has done a lot of great work for the information security community. So security should be designed to be adopted rather than just engineered or enforced. That's very apropos to this article. So I want to pull my gum out here for a second. All right. Let me see. Instead of measuring how many gaps or errors developers have left in the application, measure how quickly those issues were found and fixed. I can see that. Different metrics are involved. You end up with various various metrics. Coming from a vulnerability management background, you get scans all the time that show you have 200-300 vulnerabilities, or you're working with a group of people. You've just done a security assessment, and there's a bunch of findings left over. It's my lovely wife. You didn't see her; she's off camera, but they're going somewhere. Anyway. So you've got a bunch of findings that were discovered, buffer overflows, code quality issues. Really we should not be harping on the fact that they exist. We should try to find ways to address those, or to keep them from happening again in the first place, which is a lot of reasons why people like to shift left on these things. So let's go see who's in our chat while I'm sitting here. So Abbott and Costello and CAX IPS 06. All right, excellent. Thank y'all for joining. Appreciate that. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. We will have the other two members of the podcast on eventually. Of course, during the week we all have jobs, so just taking some time here to build up our hours here according to Twitch. So. Making it easier for us to get involved here. So anyway, so they say security that's accessible. There are a few things more frustrating for a developer than receiving a 25-page Word document. I'll tell you right now, if so I have been on the receiving end of those 25. Actually, they weren't 25. That's fairly liberal. I mean, the first 7 or 8 pages is company name on a nice fancy 1-page document, 6 or 7 pages discussing methodology and why we do what we do, other legalese and stuff. So I mean, I've seen reports that are 50 plus. I've actually received a report one time that was probably 100 pages, and when you get one that's 100 pages, you really start to worry about not the quantity of bugs found, but the quality of those bugs found. You can find thousands and thousands of bugs, but unless you actually know if it's a finding or not, that's where you've got a good pen testing firm, if they can give you everything in a short amount of time, or get rid of the report altogether. A lot of companies just want the bugs filed in a Jira or a Remedy or whatever, but your ticket tracking system is. So give them a pared down report with hey, thank you for letting us test your stuff. These are the findings that we discovered, and this is where they're at in your ticket system. And here's the vulnerability level based on that. And ideally, and we'll always talk about this. We always talk about this in the future, but security assessments or pen tests. I tend to use security assessment because pen tests kind of lost its focus. Or not focus, but it's lost its meaning. I think there's too many people out there that, they'll call a Nessus scan or an Expo scan a pen test, and because they just come from a point of not knowing what a real pen test is. So I like to use the term security assessment, security assessor instead of a pen tester. Security consultant also is a fairly decent term, but yeah. Oh, okay. Very cool. All right. So yeah, they say more frustrating than a 25-page Word document from a security colleague listing all the security considerations for the particular application they're working on. These documents are difficult to understand and slow workflows to a halt because they're written in a language that makes sense to security non-developers. Yeah. I think it's all in phrasing there. They're trying to help you understand the phrasing there. So some of the ways you can do that, where you can make it more friendly to developers, is the common weakness enumeration. There we go. Ding. All right. So MITRE, MITRE.org, creates this common weakness enumeration. And one, it does require you to, I don't want to say think a little, but it does require you to rephrase in the form that developers will understand, almost like a Google Translate, if you will. So if you found cross-site scripting in an application or something like that, you might go in and instead of saying, well, you've got cross-site scripting here, you just need to do blah. You might walk up into, the CWEs here and talk about, let me see, where is it? Behavioral bad coding practices. That's probably not it, but yeah, that's more proper code. So anyway, for like cross-site scripting, it might be, bad input or poor input handling or poor data validation issues, etc. You might look at that in terms of that. Permissive list of allowed inputs, and that could be it. Cross-domain policy, yeah. So I mean, the idea is you'd want to go in. There's a ton of these CWEs, as you can tell, and some of them actually fit. So more than one actually fit, depending on the type of vulnerability that you get to. But yeah, CWEs are pretty cool. Plus, they are supposed to be written in a language that developers understand. So, stack variable addresses, explicit call to finalize, multiple binds to the same port, etc. MITRE actually does a pretty good job of codifying these items so that you can get your point across. So I would actually love to see more security assessing firms use these instead of, you got cross-site scripting or the OWASP top 10. Those are not really, and I think we talked about this in the podcast before, I don't think those are actually, the OWASP top 10 is not really made or meant for developer types. Or it really convey what the real problem is in terms of that. So SQL injection, vulnerabilities. There's a number of ways that can go, and maybe in the future, once I start working with my mentee, we'll go through some of these vulnerabilities and some of these issues and work those up into security equivalents and developer equivalents. I've got a lot of homework for my mentee. As a matter of fact, the 8th, I think March 8th, we're going to start talking about some of the try-hack me stuff with him. So anywho, so we'll go back here to, that's another story we can talk about later. But all right, so if security teams recommend they protect authenticators from unauthorized disclosure or modification, great. Most developers will have no idea what that means. Even if it's an important security consideration, they'll never be implemented if developers don't know what security is talking about. Yes, if security can deliver guidance that's more accessible for developers written in a language they understand, developers are much more likely to address them. I would also suggest potentially mitigations in you can say, oh yeah, sanitize your inputs, but giving examples or creating use cases, finding ways that you can integrate your findings as not work halts, because the thing is when you give them this report with a bunch of findings in it, they're going to have to take time to triage those vulnerabilities. They're going to have to take time to figure out, well, is this more important than this thing? Because if they work in sprints or they work in something like that, they're going to have to, they already have 5 things they need to do, and if you've given them 10 more things that need to be done that are of a higher priority than these 5 things, they're going to have to push off, product work or work that might actually, cost, give you an edge or give you a market. It might actually cause deadlines to slip because, oh, well, we just got this security report and it's full of, all this stuff and we need to understand it. So triaging those and making sure that they, these 5 are just as important as 2 of these 10 that you've got, but we can fix the other 8 later. So, having a way to more easily understand the complexity and those is often helpful. So. Okay, so yeah, security that's actionable. Okay, I think, yeah. So I didn't read this all the way through, so you can understand that I'm coming up with some of these items here. Clear and easy to understand security guidance, just a start. You can make developers' lives easier and their recommendations implemented a lot faster by just going beyond just explaining what needs to be fixed and tell developers how to fix it. Few developers are well versed in security. It's not, I've always called developers that want to go to security kind of like a unicorn because they can speak that language. They've been there in those trenches. That's a special breed of person. I've only met them half a dozen times, and the one that I met, she was pretty awesome. She wanted to move over into security, and I was like, you're a freaking unicorn, because I don't see a lot of that where people actually want to move into security. So yeah, help them get there. Just cut to the chase. Developers don't need gory details. Forcing them to do research on how to fix it. Yeah, if they're having to look up what DOM XSS is, or SQL injection or blind SQL injection, if they have to read up and research that, they're that's time that they're not coding or not triaging or not fixing things. So that's a good place to start with that. So. Let me see. Security that's automated. Oh, ironically enough, our podcast this week, which I have notified the guests that we're having on Sunday evening, that we've moved to a Twitch. So we're actually going to be talking about some automation with a couple of ladies that we're going to talk about some automation. It's going to be where you can ask questions. That's one reason I decided to put it on Twitch. We'll have people can join us, ask questions about automation if you're running up against this issue. So, all right. So they say, yeah, the problem with automation is, and I want to bring this up to the people who are going to be with us on Sunday. Everybody wants to, everybody for the last 15, 20 years have been saying, well, pen tests are going to be made obsolete because there's automation. We don't need to do manual code reviews anymore. We've got Coverity, or we have Fortify, or we have, insert your favorite automated code system here. They're only as good as the people writing the rules for them. You can run, those tools all day, and unless they are tuned, you're going to miss things. You still need to do manual code review. You could never, I don't think, ever truly automate a security assessment. There's always, I think, going to be a human behind the wheel at some point on that, either double checking to make sure that those things work, or that the tools worked as designed. But I still think that there's going to be some, QA on that, or QC, to make sure that, the tool is actually able to find vulnerabilities or be able to walk through the code correctly. So, and that's somebody who's, been on that side of the pen testing. I don't think we're going to have to worry, because there's so many technologies coming out. There's always going to be a need for people to either create the detections or test to make sure the detections work, or create new tools to detect bad things. So there's always going to be some kind of area of for security for people. It's very much a people-oriented organization type deal. So this part of the process requires time and effort up front. Yeah. There's a fine line there between just doing it and then automating it. You have to really find out if it's worth the time to automate it, because it'll save you time in the long run, or, if I can just click this button once or twice and make it happen. There really is that fine line between, should I automate something and should I just, go ahead and, do that? And a lot of times I hear, like, it's going to take me longer than it will to explain it, or it'll take me less time than if I explain it to you to have you do it. So, I definitely want to ask our guests this weekend about some of the items here. Keep this as a note for the show as well. Security at the right time. Security should be engaged early in the process. Yes, we've always been trying to shift left on security. Some people are like, well, we need to maybe do it during the sprint or whatever. Some people want to go clear back to, when somebody is thinking up the basic requirements doc for these things. So engaging security to say, hey, what's wrong there? I've found that not everybody enjoys having security there, and it really depends on the mentality of the security person who's being involved with that. If they're already set against the technology, like trying to invite me to a big blockchain discussion, probably would not be a good use of my time, because I anybody who's like, oh yes, here's a problem, let's put it in the blockchain. It's like, okay, great. I mean, there's some definitely, I could definitely go, okay, I'm going to let you run with this as far as you want it to run, but you're going to have to show me some due diligence. We're going to have to understand the threats involved, what kind of issues we could come up against. How could this be stolen? There's definitely some things you'd want to look at when you're talking about that. So anyway, yeah, so part of the friction, let me see. If you engage at the right time, developers can fix security issues and design gaps while the application is being designed, not after they've already implemented it. Yeah, that's, shift left reduces risks and streamlines workflows. It's all about costs, right? It's something I learned in my PMP course and also my change management course. When you're, when everything is still kind of an ephemeral, it's all thoughts, ideas, and brainstormings over here. And then, before you're actually putting code in the IDE and doing commits and, making sure everything, if you can insert your thoughts and feelings and brainstorms into the ephemeral cloud over here before it creates something tangible, which is going to be shipped, you're better off. You'll have less costs on the left side here. I know I'm pointing to, well, it's kind of left. The worst thing you could do is release something and then find that there's a major issue, and then it's going to be very difficult to fix or deploy or patch or do what have you. And usually that requires a lot of 12 a.m. calls and incident response. So the sooner you can get it over here on this side, the better, I think. So any thoughts or questions from our listeners? Oh, we got quite a few more listeners here. Excellent. Anybody anybody here developers or have been developers in the past, or security people who have to deal with developers? Not deal, but they work with developers. Deal. That sounds incredibly negative. All right. So let me see. Oh, and the fourth and final, not to be, it's probably they buried the lead here. So yeah, okay. So they buried the lead, stopping the culture of fear. This goes back to we're the Department of No. We're not, we're speed bumps. We're the cautious folks. So yeah, making these changes requires a definite cultural shift in your organization, moving away from a siloed culture of fear. In communication or security, people saying, oh, devs don't know what they're talking about, or security or developers are like, security just doesn't understand us. Every time we have a meeting with them, they're just going to tell us what we did wrong. That was actually something very insightful. My wife told me. She's like, and she doesn't work in security, but I've kind of infected her with security over the years. She said that, and she's a PM. She's an awesome PM. Amazing. I can't even hold a candle to her skill in being a PM, program manager, portfolio manager, etc. But she said, when you go into a meeting where the people are going to always tell you you're doing something wrong or you need to change this, you're not, you don't go, hey, y'all did a great job on this. Thank you for this. If they're going to come in, developers are going to come into a meeting with security thinking, well, security is going to tell me I'm doing everything wrong. Everything is not good. I'm not doing a good job. So obviously that doesn't breed very, very popular viewpoint. I mean, you'd be dreading that, or you'd automatically be either on the defensive or you'd be adversarial in many cases. So I'm kind of putting the blame on both sides here in regards to that, where security needs to think about how they come across to not just developers, but PR, legal, other groups in your organization that you have to work with on a regular basis. Compliance, compliance is its own thing. Compliance is, having worked with compliance people, there's definitely a lot of, hey, you need to, we have to do it according to this, unless you get some savvy folks working on like PCI or SOX that can, interpret the intent there or help you understand, well, okay, doing certain things. But it's definitely a cultural shift if you are, the next time, if you're a security person or if you're a developer and you have a meeting and you're like, oh, great, I'm going to be going and talking to Jim or Biff or, Jane or whoever, ask yourself why you have that issue with them. Is it because that they're, always doing something wrong, or are they the security people, or are they the compliance people? And maybe you need an unofficial type meeting where you can just, kind of have it out, have a level set, help them understand where your ideas and goals are, your business impacts, their business impacts. Sometimes you can find champions there, especially in the developers or security. If you can say, hey, I want to be secure, I want to do the right thing, but it's not easy with X process, or it's not easy with Y policy. You might find the security people feel the same way. I won't tell you how I know that. It's maybe one day you and I, being the Twitterverse, will meet at a pub, and I will buy you an adult beverage, and we can talk about that and trade some stories about some of that. So, but yeah, it's definitely a change that needs to occur. So, all right, awesome. My company never sleeps, so it is what it is. There we go. Oh. Anyway, so I hope everybody's having a good Tuesday, Monday Eve or what have you. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh, what's this? Okay. Not yet. Typing. I'm learning how to multi-class here, or multitask in any case. So we're going to be having a little longer session on Saturday. One of the things that I wanted to do was to maybe do some fundraising, do 2 or 3 hours, suggest some nice places supporting Ukraine, Oh, okay. In terms of charity or fundraising, there's, so I got this story. It's translated from, so apparently there was a data breach in the Russian Federation. 120,000 soldiers. Apparently their information was doxed, including their names. Looks like, let me see, Center for Defense Strategy, 120,000 servicemen fighting in Ukraine. So names, registration numbers, and the place of service. So there's kind of like, I would assume registration numbers are similar to the U.S. Social Security numbers. And where they're stationed, so their commands in this case. So there's 6,616 pages of information there. That's a lot of people who just got doxxed for being service members in Russia. So, yeah, I don't want to be political at all as much as possible because I don't live there. And, my opinion on all of this is probably as useful as, plug nickel, but, where people are suffering, people are hurting. So, we're gonna do 2-3 hours. I've got my friend Joe Gray. I'm gonna see if I can get him on to do some stuff with us, some OSINT related items, kind of give us a sneak peek of his OSINT class that he does for helping missing persons. He actually reached out to me asking to do something a bit larger, but he doesn't know if we can coordinate all of that before Saturday. So we're gonna probably get on and do a little something there. So there's a couple of organizations. I think Nova Ukraine, I think, was one that he had suggested as a donation site. Let's see, Nova Ukraine. It's a charity. Yeah, it's a nonprofit. So they take PayPal, crypto. You can donate to help out and support people in Ukraine. So if you have crypto, you can help out. I'm sure if they'll take your NFTs or whatever as well. You can also donate and volunteer. So they have a mission statement and a page here where you can go and, they have where you can translate books. So, you can translate books from Python or other places, making STEM education more accessible in Ukraine. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's a nice little translation project. So let me see what else. I'll close that one. Let me see. There's a lot of stuff having to deal with. Let me see what we got going on here. Ooh, recruiting motivated CTF members. Let me see. So that's on Reddit/reverse engineering. There's actually several Reddit pages that I follow because of, let me see, CCCTF Club. Okay. There you go. Internal challenge platform for CCCTF. Oh, I'll have to check that one out later. That's very interesting. Okay. All right. Let's see what else. Isaac Wiper, third wiper, spotted since the beginning of the Russian invasion. There's a write-up from ESET. They uncovered a new data wiper tracked as Isaac Wiper used against unnamed Ukrainian government networks. Spotted it on the 24th of February within an organization not infected with hermetic wiper malware, or aka kill disk, which infected hundreds of machines in the country, according to cybersecurity firms ESET and Symantec. Wow, Symantec's got yet another name. Discovered telemetry shows it was installed on hundreds of machines. This follows DDoS attacks against several Ukrainian websites earlier today. Okay. They have yet to attribute Isaac Wiper to certain threat actors. So it's funny. People want to go, well, automatically this, but this is a perfect time for non-Russian or non-Russian actors to come in, because your system one memory automatically goes to, well, I know what's going on in that region. I know who the players are involved in the war. Obviously, it's going to be those folks. But yeah, if I was somebody who's wanting to try to make noise or work my way through, hiding in the noise or just making people assume that it is somebody else when it's in fact not those people, it would be the best thing to do. So, of course, I don't do that kind of stuff. I never actually did that kind of stuff, even when I was involved with that. So, triaging a malicious Docker container. That's on RNetSec. Okay. Oh, BruteShark. This is a great site, by the way. I enjoy this site quite a bit. It's called Kitploit. I don't know how they find all of these tools, but it seems like every day they find a different tool every time. It's a network analysis tool called BruteShark. I'm assuming it must use Wireshark for. Oh, it's a CLI. Okay, yeah. It's a network forensics tool. performs deep processing and inspection of network traffic, PCAPs, PCAP files, which are packet capture files for those of you who are understanding it. Basically listens on the network and will pull all of the packets off of an Ethernet or a wireless connection, as they're going through the air or they're going through the wire. So you can capture those any number of ways. When I took my SANS course, you could like mirror a port on a switch. You could put in a network tap. That's less effective these days because you've got like 10 gigabit Ethernet or something like that. I don't know if they have taps for those. I have a gigabit tap, I think, a Shark tap that does gigabit Ethernet, but it'll you plug one port, cable in here, one cable in here, and then you connect a third off a T, and you use that kind of like a port mirror or whatever. So yeah, 2 versions are available: a GUI-based application Windows and a command line interface tool, Windows and Linux. Yeah, that's great. So the CLI tool is probably I would argue that the CLI, is often better, unless you want to visualize something. There may be some graphing or something that goes into GUI-based tools, but yeah. Let me see. Oh, if you do any network analysis, this might actually be helpful for CTFs. If you're doing a CTF and they give you a PCAP, it might be something you want to look at to do forensics for forensic analysis. Matter of fact, I'll bookmark that one and put it in our Slack channel, in our DFear channel for later, for our threat intelligence channel. If you are interested in joining our Slack channel, by the way, eventually I've thought about a Discord, because it seems like everybody who streams on Twitch has a Discord. So I have a BreakSec Discord that's been up for about 5 months. The problem is there's a bit more complexity in setting up a Discord than there is setting up a Slack channel. I want to make sure we do things like, code of conduct. We set up moderation in all the channels correctly. I actually had a bot that was doing replication across them that I actually had running on a Raspberry Pi. It's where my Pi hole was over there in my closet there, that would take the Slack channel stuff and move it over into the Discord. But I don't have anybody on the Discord, and all it did was, just kept hitting me up on notifications, so I stopped it. But worked really well. I just, once, there's just a lot of people in my Slack. They're like, yeah, I don't want to move away from Slack, and I'm like, great. So we'll have to have 2 versions, but eventually we'll work it out somehow. But yeah, so if you want to, just send us a DM to at BreakSec, which will come up in the next second here. You can send us a DM, or you can actually send a message in the Twitch chat with your. You can send it privately if you'd like, and I can email something to you. I just don't want to put the invite link out because we'll get bots, and we'll get people who will ruin the experience. And we don't actively stop people, but we also don't want bots just coming up in there and spamming the hell out of us. So we have a fairly cool environment and community there. So BruteShark, let's see. Okay, so you get wget, yeah, you install it. Here's some examples. Let me make it a little bigger here. Doink, doink. Okay, so okay, extracting passwords and hashes from that. There's a video there. I'll put that in the not in the show notes, but we'll copy that link for everybody who can review it. Yeah, the Kitploit site is excellent. I mean, if you ever need a tool for security, or if you need it for forensics or what have you, it is an amazing site. They have a lot of excellent content on there. I don't know how they find all this stuff, but here's a standalone PHP web shell. Here's crack any Windows user's password. Oops. There we go. Crack any Microsoft Windows user's password without any privilege, guest account included. So, if you're a security assessor, if you're a security assessor looking for new content or a new tool, maybe, you don't use Kali Linux. So, people are making stuff up every day. So there's, every new tools here for everything. Detection of phishing domains and domain squatting. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff here, so don't hesitate to hit Kitploid up on their website for additional items. So let's see. So one of the things that I've been looking at is lessons and things that I can help my mentee learn about. And the funny thing is, I end up learning just about as much because, like I said, I don't come from a development background. And one of the things that I was learning about from Try Hack Me, one of the first lessons we were looking at for flags was talking about an AJAX, web server or web service that they have. So I was running through W3 School's tutorial on AJAX, and you can, AJAX is not a programming language. It's a technique for accessing web servers from a web page. It stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So you can try it yourself. So you can go in, let's see, run. Okay. Assuming my JavaScript works. Let's see. Change content. Okay. See, this is where it's going to get real quiet because I get it. It's a doc type HTML. Okay. Dev demo. Header to HTTP request object. Button on click load the doc. Okay. So it loads the doc with JavaScript, and when you do that, it loads this bit here. So, let me see here. That's a pretty cool little interface. Okay. So you HTTP open get AJAX info.txt. So there's an AJAX info.txt that you can pull down or review. Let's go back over here to this. I probably need to go to my, supposed to, where is it? I'm an advanced user. Yes, that's what you want to say. Okay. There we go. All right, W3 Schools. W3 Schools, no. We'll engage that one because I don't know what Sniggle Web is. Okay. There we go. All right. So okay, so try it yourself. What am I trying? Nope, that's wrong. I know how Wimmery feels when she's going through her stuff. It's like I get a little lost sometimes. So I can make this .png, and it should error when I run this. Yeah, so you can't seem to find the source you're looking for. Okay, so inside that text file is that, and ideally you're supposed to be able to change it and do what have you. But I can't change the content. So I request the... All right, so let's go down here to AJAX example explained. All right, so it contains a div section and a button, right? Div section, button, right? Div section displays information from a server. Button calls a function if it's clicked, right? That's good. And the button is the change content, load doc using JavaScript. All right, and then the function is right here. So yes, on load, run the function, which is the whole thing. Get document by element demo, this response. Get ajax.text info, and then it formats it accordingly. So, okay. AJAX is a misleading name. AJAX applications might use XML to transport data, but it's equally common to transport data as plain text or JSON. JSON key pairs. So, yeah. It's good that they've expanded it beyond XML to using other data formats that are universal. JSON is usually pretty good. Technically, I guess you could do CSV in a pinch. Anything that has a formatted, process there, that would work. So here's how AJAX works. I think this is probably somewhat simplified, but no way in heck this is, it's simple three things. So you have an event in the browser. It creates the request object, sends the request through the internets to the server. It processes the request, which in this case would be this, run load doc. It would run the load doc. It would get AJAX info.txt if it exists, and then send it back. So the server says, yes, AJAX info.txt, I have that, and then sends it back. So if you've ever used Google Docs, apparently I would imagine this is what they're talking about. So when you're basically opening a Google Doc and a huge AJAX kind of deal. When you make changes, it gets sent out or saved to the servers. So it's almost like a document in browser. So you're going to type something up, type it, and then it goes to wherever you're storing it in your Google Drive. Same thing for Office 365, where you can collaborate through Windows boxes that way. And then, it's if you've got 10, 15 people sharing it, they all make regular checks back and forth between the server to say, hey, is there any new stuff? Is there any new stuff? Then they get the updated, audio, or not audio, but they get the updated content that is generated by your changes to the doc. My kingdom for USB cable. And all I have is micro right now. Anyway, all right, well, we'll fix that in a few minutes. So yeah, and then once you get it back, the JavaScript loads the contents of the web page. So yep, so it's created by JavaScript. Yes, JavaScript object is sent to the web server. Web server processes the request and sends a response back to the web page. It's read by the JavaScript, and it's updated as performed by JavaScript. So there you go. They use a fetch API. Okay, so they use an API to allow browsers to make requests to the servers. If you use a request object, fetch can do the same thing in a simpler way. Oh, very cool. Okay. I actually went through and found a website called, talking about, why they're vulnerable to hacking, some of the things to look for. Akinetics is not a bad site for understanding that. So they talk about some of the CSS required for representing the content to the user, because when you get it back, it's not in, I would imagine it's in a raw state, being an XML file or being in a JSON file. So it has to be parsed, and then it has to be shown in a nice fancy way using the style sheets I mentioned. The document object model is the structure that it's a dynamic representation of the content. So you really have two levels here of presentation. So you have the CSS, which would do individual elements or the page itself, and then you have the document object model, which tells you how that information should be shown exposes users to access and manipulate elements. So XML and XSLT. XSLT is like style sheets, but for XML. I tried doing XSLT for about 5 minutes way back in the day, because I thought XML would be a better format to put my websites in. No, not so much. At the time, I was learning how to use CSS like 2.1 or something like that. That's how old I'm coming back to. And then of course JavaScript, which makes everything work. So there you go. So they're talking about instant noticeability, vulnerabilities. Here you go. So they must be aware of potential security holes and breaches to which AJAX applications have and will become vulnerable. Pete Lindstrom, Director of Security Strategies. Most vulnerable elements in the IT's organization today. It's an increase of text. Yes, this leads to back-end applications which might or may not have been previously vulnerable. Yeah, you could run into issues if you send a request up to the server and the server can't parse it correctly. You could run into issues. Also, you could get a server-side, vulnerability where it takes the request that you sent, interprets it thus, and then sends it back to a browser that, then it comes into issues. You could run into issues like that where the server sends back something that's malformed to a user, which then causes issues. Cross-site scripting is one. Let me see. Yeah, XSS worms are increasingly intelligent and become highly capable of carrying out debilitating attacks, such as network denial of service, spamming and email attacks, and rampant browser exploits. Every once in a while you'll find there'll be a parsing error or something in JavaScript that causes an issue. Let me see. Okay. I did have a link at one point to AJAX vulnerabilities. There we go. Yeah, here's a... So some of the items they talk about is exposed internal functions of the application, increased attack surface with inputs to secure client access to third-party resources with no built-in security or encoding mechanisms. Encoding issues would definitely be an issue. Failure to protect authentication information in sessions, that's always a thing. Sometimes you're looking at not just passwords, but you're looking at OAuth tokens, which can be used elsewhere. That's another way that those things can be, the failure of authentication. If you could grab an OAuth token that's still valid, not only would you have access to, say, a person's email, but you would have access to other things that they use to log in with that email if they could show a valid OAuth token. Blurring the line between client-side and server-side code, resulting in security mistakes. Right. And that's just something, you're gonna come up with. You could definitely get SQL injection if you're not doing proper input sanitization. They show an example here: select ID from users where name is blah or 1 = 1. So anything 1 = 1, limit 1, will always return a row unless the table is empty. Another example: set of SQL statements drops the table users, of course. So causing denial of service. That would be bad because, unless you have backups, you're going to lose your users table. That just, there's other issues there. You've got SQL, the web server, the server that's running these things should not allow, SQL statements to be ran as an elevated user. That's why you should, potentially drop privileges. I look forward to people with comments telling me other ways to do this. I'm always been a fan of dropping permissions wherever possible and running things with only the least privilege. Cross-site scripting, of course, they say the server's not able to classify them. They look identical between the browser and the AJAX requests. It's not to be confused. AJAX is not AJAX, which was a Greek hero, I believe. So it's not AJAX. It is AJAX. Examples, so you got script alert, howdy script. Then you can run document location, and then pull out people's cookies. So if you can load that, and this gets added, and ran by a user, a little pop-up will come up and says howdy. And then, it'll be like, I also want your Facebook cookies, or I want your Twitter cookies, which could be the ability for, session, being able to access a session from a validly logged in system. XSS exploits can access sensitive client data, also modify client-side code. DOM injection is a type of cross-site scripting which creates sub-objects or document locations. There's a bunch of stuff inside the DOM that can cause additional issues outside of XSS. That's the third kind of XSS violation that can then occur. You should take a look at that if you can for vulnerabilities. And cross-site request forgery. That's another good one. Occurs when an attacker forces a victim's web browser to send HTTP request to any website of his choosing. They also call it the confused deputy deal. So you trust the request because it came from a website that you trust. While reading this post, the JavaScript code embedded in the web page could have forced your browser to make an off-domain request to your bank. If you're already logged into your bank, for instance, yes, or your blog, or your webmail, or your DSL router, your Facebook, or your Twitters, or whatever, it'll tell your browser, yeah, I also want you to go and load this content, but don't show it to the person or whatever, and gain access to that. Denial of service, yeah. That's a good one. Browser-based attacks. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's we've just scratched the surface on the AJAX stuff. What I really like to do and what we do with podcasts is I always try to get people on who are really smarter than me, that's a lot of people, to come on and talk about this from an informed position, and then I can ask them questions because my hope is that I will learn something just as quickly as everyone else will. So let me see. So we have. I will put this link in the window as well if you want to further read. Would you like to know more? That kind of thing. W3 Schools is a great area to go through and do some lessons, and I believe they have tutorials that you can go through where you can learn some stuff as well. And I already got the kit point thing in there. Recruiting motivated CTF members. I will put CCCTF club, copy link in chat. That way everybody has access to those things and this WordPress blog. We do this with our show notes as well. So every time I post a podcast, which I actually posted part 2 of our discussion last week with Doug Levin and Eric Langford. They work for an ISAC, which is an information sharing organization called K-12-6. And their deal is, as we've seen, if you follow the news at all, there have been a ton of educational facilities, elementary schools, school systems, what have you, that have been hacked or ransomwared or what have you. And the problem is it's kind of twofold. A school system can buy or hire a security person, but in doing so, they actually take away from getting a teacher. So there's a fine line they have to walk there. They could hire a whole group of security people, but they, would have less either to pay teachers. They need to pay teachers more, obviously, but, every security person they hire is one less teacher they can hire, or 1.5 or 2 less teachers they can hire. So the Information Security Exchange, K-12-6, they are offering resilient cybersecurity resilience services to keep students and school districts operating. The map you see here was created, I think, from 2016. They say to present. I don't know if that's actually like up to the minute or what have you, but these are all incidents that have occurred since 2016 to educational facilities and institutions, from elementary schools to entire school districts. I think the different colors denote whether or not it was ransomware or malware or phishing or something like that. And, as you can see up here in the Seattle area, they had a number of things that happened in the area having to do with ransomware. A couple of the school systems up here actually paid the ransom to get their information back. And, there have been data breaches as well. So you've got kids with their social security numbers and their information out there on the dark web. They don't even have a credit rating yet, and somebody's, using their social security numbers to do things like open, home loans and car loans and lines of credit and credit cards and stuff. It's scary, especially if you have kids. So take a look at them. If you are in an educational facility or institution, they partner with certain groups to not to push an agenda. In the podcast, we find out, that they are working to, help level set, or they have a couple of things here. They talk about essential protections. You can go in and if you can sign up to be in the ISAC to get threat intelligence information, and I can't get inside because I'm not a member of an educational institution, but they have certain events that they do on a regular basis, workshops and things. So you can register if you are, in the educational sphere to join those and learn about how you can protect organizations if you're a member of an IT school system. So anyway, well, I'm going to go. It's 5 o'clock Pacific time, my time. I expect to be on more this weekend, and on Sunday evening we're going to do our podcast with Mr. Betcher and myself and our two guests. And Miss Berlin, I think, is out, so eventually she'll be on here, and you'll be able to see her. But yeah, we'll be doing our podcast, and we'll just have some fun and answer some questions and talk and have a good time. So I'm gonna go. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.